He is 18 years old. So we have 18-year-old people in the military
Wow.
who carry M16s, but they carry them responsibly because they've been trained, right?
So I get this topic. I get it because
You
I
get
was
what I'm
someone that
saying?
was bullied as a kid.
Yeah.
Because I was a much different person then. I
Right.
had severe anxiety, maybe even like on a spectrum almost. That's how bad it was. But when you're like that and you don't know how to defend yourself, you don't know how to be assertive, and I think for someone like myself, it was like Asperger-like, autistic-like, severe anxiety.
Yeah.
You just can't for whatever reason. But what it does do, it boils up.
Yeah.
And you build resentments. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't have fantasies about like kicking the crap out of people in my grade. And so I can certainly see how something like that is just an extension of what exactly I know I went through.
Yeah, I mean, but
what do you do about that?
But I think what you just said is probably pretty normal. You wanted to kick the crap out of people your age who were bullying you or older,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
This guy walks in and kills little defenseless children. I mean, these children were small.
Well, this is something Jordan Peterson talks about, right?
Right.
It's the existential angst of trying to say, not only will I kill myself, which he basically did, death by cop, pretty much.
Yeah.
But he goes, I want to show and cause as much destruction as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Similar to one of those German pilots that purposefully crashes into the mountains with a plane full of people. Right? Same kind of thing. So there's a lot of different things going on here. And so in America, I think we are in a sick society.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of mental health issues, a lot of bullying issues. Social media certainly is not a very good influence,
No.
especially for those of us who are the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like, I consider myself very lucky now to have been gotten out of that darker space. But I can see it when you're a kid. It might seem impossible to get out. Your frontal lobe of your brain is not even fully developed until you're 25.
Yeah.
So when someone's 18 like he is, you're still half dumb.
Well, you and I have talked about the book by Robert Sapolsky, Behaviour. We talked
Yes.
about it very briefly. Someday when you have time, I want you to read it. He's really an expert in this area. He breaks it down in a way. The prefrontal cortex, which governs behavior. He makes the science easy for you to digest. And there is a science behind this. So my thinking on this is, if our mental health delivery system was available, if it was a situation where all our social systems our social workers, everybody was funded properly to get out there into the communities. And I know I'm asking for utopia here, but we're marginal right now. I mean, barely hanging on.
Yeah.
And you're right about our society. There's something happening, but it has a lot to do with mental health, and we have to do something about it.
And this might be something you disagree with me, I'm not sure, but I think religion and a lack of religion doesn't help. Now, certain people like our friend Sam Harris and the other atheists,
Right.
They completely disagree with that.
Right.
They think that, oh, this is great. We're in a rationalist place now. We're free from that terrible dogma of all these religions. But I think it's pretty clear that there's a gap. There's a gap where that kind of stuff used to play a role.
Yeah.
And there used to be more community-wide guilt and shame about things. And I think the older I get, the more I see how that actually could have played a good part in things. It keeps people in line. Because now what do you see? We see everything goes. Anything goes. You can do whatever you want. If you ever get judged, you're wrong for judging. So you can do whatever you want sexually. You can do whatever you want recreationally. Drugs. Doesn't matter. There is no rules now. And there's not really too many in-person, in particular, community structures to help people stay in place, right? People don't go to church.
Yeah.
Don't go to synagogue. Now, maybe in some cases they go to like 12-step programs. That does help.
Yeah,
they do get helped in that kind of thing because it serves many purposes, but it's a group of people that are on a similar mission, on a similar goal, and they talk to one another. CBT-like, right?
Well, I think the connective tissue is there's some mentoring that goes on. If it's not from a fellow congregant or a fellow member of a 12-step program who gives you some solace and they're going through the same thing. I know in the Army, I was a platoon sergeant. I had 30 young men in a scout platoon. I became their mother and father in a lot of ways, and for some, their big brother. And I took that responsibility seriously. And I had one soldier that he was no longer in my platoon, and but I knew him well, Robbie, and I won't give his last name up. But I get a call one day that he's hanging from the rafters in his garage. And clearly that broke my heart. And I didn't see that coming. You know,
most people don't.
He was a junior non-commissioned officer. He was at one time non-commissioned officer of the year. And his father was a police officer in the city of Salinas, California, and an exceptional man himself. And it turned out that it was his suicide was over a love interest. You know,
it happens a lot with men in particular.
And it just really, that was the first time something like that happened to me. There was a non-combat death, and it just impacted me so much that the impetus for me then was I was even more motivated to be in my soldiers' lives, a part of their life, checking up on them, calling them on holidays, doing stuff like that. I'm not an exception to the rule. I was a rule. A lot of non-commissioned officers, we were the backbone of the Army. Yes, the officers commanded, but we ran the Army. And these guys were our guys, and now men and women,
right,
of course, in combat arms. And when you're in combat arms, you're in a close environment, you live together, you don't shower together, right? You're out dirty for months at a time. And you know, it's a tough duty. But Robbie really kind of brought that was an experience for me that made me say, I need to do this even more. And I've continued to do that type mentoring stuff. I told you about the Lancaster County Veterans Court that I got involved with, and we started off here, and it's bearing great fruit, and these people are reaping benefits, both
right,
men and women veterans, who instead of going to prison, go through this program. As long as it's, like I had mentioned to you off camera, as long as it's not a Megan's issue or a serious violent felony, we could help them out and you know, kind of divert the.
I think that's important.
You know, and it's work. The recidivism is, I think they said it was like 5%, which
it's pretty good.
That's pretty darn good.
That's pretty good.
You know,
because a record certainly does prevent people from moving forward.
It
in life.
does.
I saw them all for programs like that.
It does.
But as you were mentioning about your friend there, there's three. Like, I'm not even sure how to address all of the issues with mental health, because it's not just one. There's many. So they have like a abuse in childhood issue, or a trauma in childhood issue, or maybe you have a narcissistic parent or a borderline parent. And part of me thinks, like, once you've gone through that, there's some irreversible damage that goes on there, and you get anxiety disorders for life. I know if you have a narcissistic parent, they've proven that you're way more likely to have an anxiety disorder.
Sure.
And then you mentioned the relationship piece. I think that's a huge one. I'm 37. And the people my age and younger, it's not like the way it used to be with relationships, where people found a way to pair bond and make it work more often than they didn't, it seemed. But nowadays, you don't see that. Nowadays, and I think a lot of it's because of social media, but a lot of guys just strike out.
Yeah.
And only a smaller percentage of men are really desirable from women. And then you get guys like your buddy there, they fall head over heels for a woman, and then it devastates them when it doesn't work out. And this is part of the reason I do what I do, is to help men in that very situation, and to say to them, hey man, like, no woman is worth that. But we're all programmed from a young age with Disney and the soulmate stuff. It leads them astray. It leads them into this fantasy love addiction thinking, and to me that's poison.
Well, even Shakespeare's great work of Romeo and Juliet, I mean, you look what
poison
happened there. So
poison almost.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a mutual.
It was a mutual thing, but yeah, I think you're right. I think some of these things are ingrained in us. You are a product of your environment, no question about it. Now, when I was a lieutenant with the department in California, when I was doing gang investigations and stuff, I would look in the central files of some of these gang members. There was commonality. The gang became their family. They no longer had what you would consider the nuclear family, or whatever you want to phrase it. Even single parent family. Sometimes they didn't even have that.